What's up, y'all? Today we're going to be doing another portion of the toe or my toe, and I'm not talking about the physical one. We have measurement outcomes and reliability slash validity today. I will be starting off with my quantitative. So, in my quantitative, how the outcomes were recorded. So, the data was recorded by gynecologists immediately after delivery and under the supervision of an experienced obstetrician in academic hospitals at patients' records. This can be found directly here, stated right here on page 66 of my study. How the outcomes were recorded. So the data was collected from 2016 to 2018 based off of successful and non-successful VBACs. So essentially for every delivery during this period of time, it was recorded, or all the deliveries that tried or had a trial of labor, so a TOLAC, and if they either ended in a successful VBAC or specific precipitating factors that led to a C-section having to occur. So how the validity that we do have for this study. So the validity checklist was approved by 4 experts, including gynecologists and methodologists at QOM University of Medical Sciences. The reliability of this questionnaire was estimated by Cronbach alpha as 0.76. So this information can be found right here. And the Cronbach alpha, it's a reliability checker for these types of studies. So we have our scoring system here. So we're within an acceptable range, so 3. So as acceptable. So it could be better. It could be excellent. It could be good, but it's not bad enough to be questionable, poor, or unacceptable. Okay. So for our validity checklist, 3 sections were required to complete the checklist. So we have the demographic characteristics, the maternal and pregnancy variables, and clinical neonatal variables. Now, this can all be found in the same section under here, and it's going to go all the way up through right here. So for the 3 checklists, there's a lot more information added to it, but I did not add it to my toe because my toe would have been 5 pages long. So this is the checklist that they were requiring. Now, the checklists are all categorized within tables. So you have your demographic table, you have your their variable, so maternal pregnancy variable table, and then you have your variable. This is the variable table for the clinical neonatal variables. So the statistical testing, our table 1 was unstated for the way that they tested this. For our table 2, it was tested by a t-test. It was based t-test. And our table 3 was a chi-square test. Chi-square test, as stated right there. So essentially, this study took the 3 variables, that the 3 checklist variables, and added that all up to figure out what was causing potential VBAC failure. Within the study, the VBAC success rate was 85%, which is out of our patient population, 128 patients, so 85.33% of them were successful. Now, it appears that the failure rate or the failure group, the biggest reason that was happening was prolonged labor, or other factors that were relating to prolonged labor. So potential like a breech presentation or other forms of presentation that is not optimal for a vaginal delivery. So anything pretty much other than a cephalic delivery. Okay, so that is our first study. We're going to be moving on to our next study. So the measurement outcomes. To explore the nature and impact of the interactions between women in planning a VBAC and healthcare providers from the women's perspective. This is on page 1. So how the data was recorded. So the survey software Qualtrics 26 was used. The survey was distributed through the author's social media platforms and included an explanatory video, a specific VBAC video page, and 2 paid Facebook/Instagram adverts. The survey was live during the months of March to May of 2019. So that information is pulled directly from the recruitment and data collection section listed here. So how the data was measured, you have open-ended questions in a survey format, which is within this table. Where's our table one? This is our table one. So these are the questions that were given to the surveyors, and they could answer them in a myriad of ways, usually like a type and answer. So it wasn't multiple choice. It was a survey and it was asking their opinion. So it's a lot of longer comment type of answers for these questions. So you would have, can you describe any hurtful comments you received? Can you describe why you felt your healthcare provider protects slash unprotected slash protected you from negativity? Describe the positive support. What were your main reasons for hiring a doula slash birth worker? Do you have any comments about how in control you felt when planning a VBAC? And do you have any comments about being discouraged or prevented from using active labor resources? So, with all of these surveyors, this is how many individuals commented for these specific questions. Now, they didn't have to all comment to every single question, but the ones that spoke out or that was more for them, they would answer. And some of our results for the demographics of respondents, this was like our age, our different age groups, our incomes, our education, our ethnicity, relationship, and model of care. Now, a big factor in this whole survey was the amount of currently pregnant patients. So you had 171 currently pregnant patients, and you had 388 patients that had given birth in the past 5 years. So you have a pretty wide demographic of patients that are currently pregnant, about to potentially have a VBAC, or ones that were either given a TOLAC or that were denied, or what other factors related to them not going through with a VBAC procedure, which can come from our survey answers. Now, since this is a survey, surveys tend to have a little bit of bias in them, and they are harder to measure because it's, for one, it's a qualitative study, and a lot of this information is subjective, and subjective information is more difficult. It's very difficult, nearly impossible to actually measure out quantitatively, and that's why it's a qualitative, and find like a reliable truth to the situation. So the reliability and validity. During the abstraction process, the categories were organized into subcategories and main categories and given titles that were characteristics of the content of the category. Meeting with all authors allowed for refining and organization of categories, and through discussions, abstraction continued until there were two identifiable main categories, each composed of three subcategories. This can be found on page 3 within our it's somewhere here in page 3. Um, surveyors surveys are answered with subjective and not objective information. The validity of the answers may be questionable due to a potential for bias against healthcare providers. So there can be some bias there. Obviously, you want as truthful answers as you can get, but since it's subjective, it's not a very strong form of evidence. So surveys tend to not be that strong when it comes to like plausible truth. Surveys are not strong for measured data and validity as compared to ratio, and survey is not as reliable as ratio. So essentially, because this is a survey and because it is subjective, the information is not going to be nearly as accurate as it would be in using other forms of research. Okay, guys, that is all for my toe this week. I will catch you guys next week.